Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke, and I love James, how you try to like deepen your voice. I've noticed
my voice.
the last couple intros you do, you try to sound like the movie guy from
Do I?
Seinfeld. Yeah, like you try to like do the deep voice.
What do you mean try? It's just what I've been gifted in life, Luke.
Yes.
Luke, today in my deep voice, we're talking about how honey is made.
So first of all, I'm taking full credit for this one.
Good job, Luke.
I think it's a good one. You kind of poo-pooed it, I think.
I did not. I said I love this idea. That's not poo-poo. Now, I
Okay.
assume you thought I was being sarcastic.
Yes, because
but-
you're always sarcastic 100% of the time.
Fun fact, I am always sarcastic 100% of the time. But another fun
Yes.
fact, Luke, there is the first evidence of honey collection coming from Spain at least 15,000 years ago.
No.
That's
hold
what I
on.
saw.
Let me see. What do I got? Oh, yeah, I did see that.
Now, evidence. Now, these weren't like honey collectors from like beehives in their backyards. This was people collecting wild honey. And I think they found it in like storage containers or something. So they knew that they were actively doing this. It wasn't until like 10,000 years later, so, only 5,000 years ago, that ancient Egypt had organized beekeeping that was, recorded and all of the great things Egypt does for us.
According to the crack research organization Wikipedia, there's this image that was on a Mesolithic rock painting of a honey hunter harvesting honey and wax from a bee's nest in a tree, and it's a cave painting of this person with like a basket, and there's like bees flying around, and they're sticking their hand like in like the hive to get the honey out. So apparently that thing alone dates around 8 to 6,000 BC. So
that's old.
Yeah,
that's like you old.
It is like me old. So my guess is what happened was these folks were like watching probably like Yogi Bear, right?
Yeah.
Or Yogi Bear's Yogi Bear's grandpap or whoever it would be back then. And he was like tearing into a net, like tearing into a beehive, and they're like, "What the heck is he eating that for?" And then after the bear skedaddled, they probably saw like all the honey everywhere. And I did use the word skedaddle.
I like to think that they saw the bear doing that. They killed said bear, and then they like licked his paw, and they were like, "Well, this is delicious."
My process probably a little bit easier. Just saying.
Yes, probably true. That is interesting. All of that's interesting. Before we get into this stuff, Luke, if you had the proper property set up, let's say, would you have beehives?
Oh, I've actually looked into it. And unfortunately, where I live, there's a specific ordinance against beehives because I was going to mention it later, but there's this, when I talk about hive types, but there's this hive, it's called a flow hive.
Let's not talk about it yet. We'll talk about it later.
You'll get to it. So to answer your question, I would without a doubt do my own honey, because I know some people that do, and I've tasted the honey, and it's amazing, and you get the wax, and it's all good.
I can't do it either, but I would be interested.
So you're going to talk about the flow hive.
Yeah. Okay, so I thought starting off with what the bees actually do might make sense.
I think it's a fantastic idea.
Talk about their beesness. What do you think?
I agree.
Do you want to go for it, or do you want me to talk about what I copy and pasted?
I'll do like the high level, and then we can fill in the details. So,
oh boy.
So bees basically vomit pollen or nectar. No, that's what people actually like. When I was a little kid, I thought that's what I thought it was like bee poop or bee pee.
What they do?
No, it's a different belly that they have.
Yeah, but still.
So
just because it's a different belly.
So what happens, and this is just amazing. So like when you think about how nature all works together. So nectar is in all flowering and pollinating plants. And what bees do is they fly around. Bzzz, that's pretty good, bee.
That was dead on.
And they extract liquid, or the liquid nectar, using their long tube-shaped tongues, that then puts that nectar into an extra stomach called the crop, CROP. They fly around. It gets all sloshy and mixes with all the enzymes in this extra belly, and it gets the composition all perfect. Then this bee shows up. This is a worker bee, because I'll get into the types of bees. The worker bees are the ones that do all the work.
I think it's funny. They're like adult worker bees, which means they're like 21 days old. I'm
exactly.
like, oh,
they don't live out. Unfortunately, they don't live that long.
No.
So these bees get back to the hive, and they basically regurgitate that liquid from the crop onto another bee or into their crop, and then they move it into the hive. They take that and they start to fill the cells. We'll talk about the cells later. They start to fill the cells, and it's really liquidy at this point. So it's like, imagine really warm or hot honey. But when honey's room temperature, it's sticky and sweet and perfect. So what they do is they fan it with their wings until 80% of the liquid has evaporated and it gets sticky. And then once that happens, they have these special glands. So when we eat sugar as humans, we get fat. Whenever bees eat sugar, they have these glands that produce wax on their abdomen. And the perfect temperature inside the hive, the wax gets soft and malleable. They kind of steal it off of each other or off their own belly. And then they put a cap on the hexagonal cell inside of a hive. And then it basically sits there until wintertime, whenever they need to eat, or until some terrible human shoves their hand in a hive and
or a bear
and destroys it. And this is all before agricultural harvesting of honey. So that's essentially what happens. I don't know if you have any other details.
I mean, you did a really good job, Luke.
Thank you.
I thought there were some other interesting facts in there. Like you said, all flowering plants you can grab this pollen from, right? But if you want to do things kind of special, like you could plant certain flowers around that area, or if you just happen to be in an area where there's a lot of a certain thing, like rosemary, and that's how they get that like rosemary honey or specialty honeys, because all of the flowers or flowering items around that area close to the bees, that's real convenient because they're going to be lazy. They're not going to fly far. Then they'll gather from there, and that makes that actually affects the taste then of the honey that is going to be produced. I think that's pretty fascinating. Go ahead.
My wife hates clover honey.
Why? Just the taste of it?
It has a really earthy kind of taste. If you've ever had clover honey, like I'm a big fan of like wildflower honey is probably like my favorite. And then there's some other specialty ones, but like usually at the store, you're going to get wildflower honey or clover honey. And clover tends to be like just a little, like if it was meat, it would be gamier.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I don't think I have a strong preference for any sort of honey, but
I love honey.
Honey that comes in that plastic bear, that's what I like.
So the composition of honey is interesting.
Yeah,
can we talk about that for a second? So honey is mainly composed of sugars. So about 78 to 80% of honey is sugars, and of that, about 38% is fructose, 31% is glucose. The remaining is like saccharose, maltose, and some other compounds. It also has some other elements inside of it. There's amino acids that are inside of it, and then there's a really small amount of protein. There's minerals such as zinc, magnesium, potassium, which all vary depending on the types of flowers that they're eating. And then there's vitamins. So you're going to get vitamins like A, B1, B2, B3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. There's vitamin C, there's vitamin D, there's vitamin K. And then there's a boatload of enzymes that are in there as well that make this like, I'm a huge honey fan. I never used to like honey, but I think as I've gotten older, it's kind of like coffee. Like it's like an acquired taste.
That could be. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the composition of honey.
I like honey. I can't say I'm a huge fan, but I like it. It's kind of a hassle. Otherwise, I would really like it a lot more, I think. Do you think vitamin B comes from knowing that bees make so much of it?
I'm sure.
Okay, I thought so. before we go on.
Before this is all episode.
This is terrible. I'm sorry, everyone. Let's take a break for a word from our sponsor.
I have to assume that it's the little bear.
Should be, or honey bear Cheerios, maybe.
Isn't that crazy that they use a bear? So bears basically decimate beehives, and that's what they make honey in. Is
well, it's like the bear decimated the hive and put it inside himself, and now we decimate the bear to get the honey out. Is that not? We have no sponsors, Luke, but we do have shout outs. In fact, I have 3 this time because I wanted to squeeze an extra one in. Caleb R. just wanted to say you guys are full of interesting topics and love the fun facts.
I agree.
The jokes, the facetious banter, and some of the deeper details are great. Plus, I want some of your sweet stickers for my hard hat at work. So Caleb, they are as good as in the mail.
Good as there, 2023.
Yeah, that's probably accurate. Anthony C. wrote in.
Hey, dog.
Older engineering student, 28, about to start Cal State LA this fall for mechanical engineering.
Go
Good choice.
My Ducks.
That's
nice.
Right. Getting myself through school as a truck driver and found your podcast since I started doing a long haul run on the weekend. Great stuff. I've enjoyed listening to you guys for my 6-hour runs. Might run out of episodes soon, so keep them coming. And we will do that 30 minutes at a time, Anthony.
Look at us.
So start over and listen to them again.
Look at us supporting America's commerce.
We are true Americans.
I'm telling you.
America. And then last but not least, Isaac M. Real quick, because I thought this one was really funny. I listened to your HP episode. Go check it out if you haven't. And have a story. For university, I was wanting to buy a new laptop, and I ordered a custom Dell XPS with 132 gigabytes of RAM, i9 processor, and all the works so that I could use SolidWorks. He's going to run some monster models in SolidWorks. I was waiting for it to be delivered for 5 months, but with school nearing, I ordered an HP laptop with the same specs. It came within 3 days, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that all about?
It's the pandemic. It's
fantastic.
It's the virus disrupting, chip production and whatnot, I imagine.
But that's just crazy to me. 5 months and then 3 days later, boom, there's your laptop.
Meanwhile, they probably both have Intel chips inside of them. It's like, what's the issue?
Yeah, I love it. Well, if any of you have fun stories to share, you want to shout out. Oh, I also think that I had ignored Isaac. That's why I gave him a shout out here. He said he wrote back in September. I probably didn't respond. I apologized. If any of you have been ignored by me, go ahead and email us again. I promise I might get back to it this time. If you want to say hi, if you want to do whatever, I don't know, email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And don't forget to subscribe, like, share. We love the reviews. And as always, you can tell your smart devices to play the Unprofessional Engineering Podcast.
If you really want to get a response from me, include a picture of a t-shirt that you bought from unprofessionalengineering.com. Wow. I still won't open the email or look at the picture.
You are shameless.
I am shameless. I want the world to wear Unprofessional Engineering gear. What's next, Luke?
I feel like we kind of have to go to the types of bees and the actual structure itself and some of those things.
I didn't look into that at all, so take it away.
Okay, so interestingly, I actually did a ton of research on this one because I was pretty excited about this because I love honey so much. So the hexagonal shape. So we'll talk about the structure and then we'll talk about the bees themselves. So first thing, every bee that ever existed, ever in the world, and ever will in the future will create hexagonal cells in a hive. It's just by nature, that's what they do. And so it's interesting that you say that. Why would they do that? So there's a little bit of debate because obviously you can't just ask a bee a question and, hey, why are you doing that?
I mean, I could, but most people can't.
Mathematically, it uses the least amount of beeswax. And I think the theory is over billions and gazillion years, the bees learned that this one uses the least. So they could do square, they could do triangular, circles would leave gaps, anything irregular would be a waste. But then I saw this one video where they said they actually start as circles. And what happens is the wax is soft. And if you've ever seen two circular bubbles come together, whenever they hit each other, they form flatten. A straight line.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then what happens is all of these honey bubbles, essentially, that they're layering, as they touch, they form that straight line. And it just automatically creates the hexagonal shape. And what they do is they use their wings to heat up, soften, or cool that circular shape until it gets almost pulled into the hexagonal shape.
These are fascinating.
So I don't know if they're actually sitting there measuring, okay, I went like, 2 millimeters. I'm going to go 2 millimeters at like 120 degrees and 2 millimeters, 120 degrees. The circle thing makes way more sense, but I didn't find a ton of detail on that one. It is the wax from their abdomen that they make. Typically, they attach this to a piece of wood. Hence, most beehives nowadays are made out of wood. And they're typically two-sided. So whenever you see, even in nature, there's usually a sheet in the middle, and then there's bee honeycombs on one side and bee honeycombs on the other. You'll never see a third layer because that would obviously trap the honey, the larva, the water, whatever they're using. So they always do like the mirror, like one on one side, one on the other.
When you say bee honeycombs, is that as opposed to
there could be man-made honeycombs, which I think you're going to talk about a little bit later.
I see what you're saying.
See what I did there?
I was wondering what you were specifying there. Okay.
Yeah. So, and then these honeycombs grow. The color of the comb typically determines the age. If it's a very clear or translucent, it's typically a younger honeycomb, and the darker, it basically, the way this lady described it was, she's like, if you ever had white jeans, ladies, she's like, the longer you wear them, the dirtier they get. This lady was a beekeeper. She was really kind of odd. She was an odd beekeeper, and she related the color of honeycombs to wearing white jeans, which I know you have a pair of.
More than one pair, thank you.
I'm sure. So again, the darker, the older the comb, the lighter, the newer. And there's this thing called a bee spacing, or a bee space, and all honeycombs, the man-made hives, and in nature, there's 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. And what that allows is there would be no bridging that would accidentally happen as they're building a honeycomb.
Interesting.
So that's the comb itself. Now let's talk about the things that go in the combs, James.
Tell me about them.
3 types of bees. Guess what they are?
Worker bee.
Does everything. Literally, that's all they do is work.
Queen bee.
Queen bee. All she does is lay eggs.
The protector bees.
Drones.
Drone bees.
So drones are the laziest. All they do is have sex.
Oh, I know what they do.
That's all they want to do, is go and find a female queen and essentially start another hive if they can. So bees have relatively short lifespans. You think you're going to say something? What are you going to tell me?
I can't find it, but lady bees put out a lot. They sleep with the drones like all the time. Oh, the queen may mate with up to 17 drones over a 1 to 2 day mating period.
Well, she also lays like 2,000 eggs a day.
Yeah, crazy town.
Is it a day or an hour?
I think it's a day. A ton. Yeah, like I see up to 2,500 a day.
It's like multiple times her body weight in eggs she's able to lay. And interestingly, she kind of chooses which egg to fertilize, because the unfertilized ones turn into the male drones, and the then fertilized ones. Yeah, and if she wants a queen, she fertilizes and it becomes a female queen.
So is it like, because they live like 2 to 3 years, if she's like, I'm on my way out, it's time to make another queen?
Because they'll fight. 2 queens will fight.
Oh yeah, you can't have 2.
Yeah, and the worker bees are the ones that literally like do everything. So worker bees, they build the hives, they feed the queen the royal jelly, and only the queen for the most part, and queen larvae eat the royal jelly. The rest of the bees don't get the royal jelly. They are there for protection. They do the harvesting. They do the transfer of the vomiting in each other's coop, whatever it was. Coop. Like they do everything. Like so if you had to choose, James, you could be a drone bee, you could be a queen bee or a worker bee.
I mean, you're obviously going to either be the drone or the queen. I mean, nobody wants to be a worker.
Yeah, who wants to do that? Yeah.
How long does the drone live?
It's like it's like 6 to 8 weeks. The queen's like a couple years.
I mean, I guess I got to go with the queen. I feel like I got to be in charge.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot of egg laying.
It is a lot.
Maybe drone. I feel like it's a good 6 to 8 weeks, and then you're good.
It's a good life. You're out there chasing queen bees all day long.
I changed my answer. I'm a drone for sure.
I think I'd like to be a worker bee because, like, you know what your job is.
That's true.
Every day you just kind of do the same thing and you just get it done.
Yeah.
Get her done.
That's fair. Right? You be the worker, I'll be the drone. We just got to find a queen and we're all set here. Do you have anything else before I get into the beekeepers?
I'd love to hear about the beekeepers.
Okay, actually, before we do, I would love for you to take a break for this week's Luke's Rant.
Okay, so this isn't a rant. This is like an homage to honey. So I've been saying it so far. I love honey. Like we probably have 4 different jars of honey in our cupboard downstairs.
No clover honey though.
No clover honey though. So I'm in Michigan last week on vacation. We go to this place, and I'm going to give a shout out. It's called Pond Hill Farms. If you're ever in Northwest Michigan, very up high near Charlevoix, Petoskey, Pond Hill Farm.
Did you get a free shirt out of this? Be like, hey, I'm going to drop your name on our podcast.
But they have this amazing farm. They got this outdoor seating, and they got a pizza oven. Oh. And I roll up, and they got this pizza called the Bee Sting or the Stinger. And it's like a margarita style pizza with really spicy like ham on it. And then when it comes out of the oven, they drizzle honey on top of it. Really? I've never in my life.
What kind of cheese do they put on it then?
I think it's like a typical like pizza cheese. It's not like it's not like
surprises me.
And it had like basil and it's a wood-fired pizza oven. And I never in my life had honey on pizza. And like I will be putting, and it was the spicy sausage and the sweet honey, and it like dripped off because it got real liquefied. And oh my goodness, it was just like,
sounds delightful.
It gave me another way to use honey. Like I'm a big honey on granola, honey on fruit, like honey and ice cream.
Yeah.
Like I do a lot of stuff with honey, but honey on pizza is brand new, and I will forever be a fan. So Pond Hill Farm, thank you very much.
I mean, I believe everything you say, therefore I would be willing to try it, but it sounds a little creepy to me.
Oh, it was so good.
All right, go Pond Hill. Beekeepers, Luke. First, that fancy suit that they wear. It's called a bee suit. So it's, everybody knows what it looks like, right? Mm-hmm. It's like a long sleeved shirt kind of thing, long pants to protect you. Usually it comes with like a hat and a veil covering your face. And it's all, pretty well overlapping so that no bees can get inside of your suit and sting you. Fairly thick material to keep your stingers from getting through it as well. But dude, a professional one of these suits can run like 1,000 smackers, which I don't need. But if you were doing this in your backyard and you want one, because I would still want one, you can get an inexpensive one for like $30. I don't know how well it's going to protect you, but you can get one for that.
Have you ever seen like the beekeepers that don't wear them?
Yeah.
So there's this lady. It's like some beekeeper lady in Texas. Like she's, she gets all done up, and she goes when people need a bee extraction from their home, and she's just wearing like glasses and a hat, and just goes in and breaks them off, and she's holding them, and they're crawling on her arms. Apparently, they're not super aggressive. If you hit them with the smoke, and like you don't move too fast, and
I'd be wearing full plate mail if it were me. Not so fun fact, Luke. Bees apparently do not make honey year round in most regions. So for most of us, like in Pennsylvania, you're only going to be getting honey part of the time. And typically it takes until like the second year of having your beehive or your colony until the bees have made excess honey to spare. So you can't take all the honey because you're going to starve your bees. Mm-hmm. So you have to make sure that they're making enough honey so that you can, steal some for yourself and eat it. On average, a beekeeper can expect to yield about 50 pounds or 4.2 gallons of honey each year from a healthy colony in a pretty fertile area. For honey production, beekeepers give extra hive boxes called honey supers And this is for like real strong colonies. So if you have one that's just like pumping out the honey because you got a lot of flowers close, right? They're going to then, after they fill up their hives, they're going to fill these things up. And those ones are typically easier for you to get at as well, to get the honey out of and whatnot. Their boxes, they have like frames that are preformed honeycombs like you were talking about. I think everybody probably knows what those look like. And after they're filled up and sealed with wax, that's when you can go and harvest them. But again, don't take all the honey or your bees die. The easiest way to harvest honey from a beehive is through a fume board. And a fume board looks like basically like a regular telescoping like top or outer hive cover, but inside contains like this absorbent material that's sprayed with some non-toxic, non-lethal, nasty smelling thing to bees, and bees don't like it. So you put this fume board on top of the colony or the hive,
the lid,
or the lid, yeah, and the bees are like, oh man, I'm out of here, this thing stinks, and so they all leave, or most of them leave. And then after a few minutes you can go grab the honey and then take your fume board away and everything is good again. So then, like you mentioned, you could also use the smoker to pacify the bees. I don't know if it makes them sleepy or if it just makes them less active or whatever, but you can hit them with that smoke. I think you went like this, like with your smoke, and yeah, and you're all set there.
So you mentioned like how much per year you can expect, but just to give you an idea of how long it takes to make a specific amount. So it takes roughly 2 to 3 weeks to produce a single pound of honey, and they say that's about 550 bees roughly working round the clock to produce that kind of honey. And they say like weaker colonies, it can be more than double that. So that's where that gets into the health. And I remember it's been years now. They've talked about how like there's this huge like deficit in like the honeybee population in the United States, and there's all kinds of the world. There's all kinds of invasive species, and they're trying to make it, like all the chemicals and the bears are out there eating all the honey hives. But yeah, so it was interesting, like how long it could potentially take. Like I just take for granted, I bought this big 5-pound thing of honey the other day when we were on vacation, and like that took some bees. That took like 5 months or 4 months for some bees to make.
So this is a smidge off topic, and I know we're kind of behind, but this is important. What are your feelings on this? Hypothetically speaking, say someone bought like a wooden house with a jar on the bottom that's half filled with water. And the point of this house is for wood bees to climb into and go into the jar and drown and die. No honeybees are harmed in this process.
I'm assuming this is you based off what we talked about.
Total hypothetical situation.
Oh my goodness. I'm not a big wood bee fan.
Okay.
Yeah, they're nasty.
I would not drown any animals other than ones destroying my home, if that hypothetically were happening. Okay, real quick, after you took all the honeycombs out of your hive, and this is kind of assuming it's as like at your house, right? This is like a small production thing. You get it to this nice safe place, you take a hot knife and use that to cut the wax caps off of those honeycomb cells that you described and how they get made into hexes. Who knew? These wax caps can be used to make candles and things like that, so you don't always have to throw it away if you don't want.
Burt's Bees, my favorite lip balm.
That's right. I like it too. It's good. Maybe they should sponsor us. Once the caps have been removed, you can separate the liquid honey from the comb. A honey extractor, either like electric or a manual one, like that you pump and just spin the combs around. The honey goes flying out. So they use centrifugal force to separate the liquid honey from the comb without destroying the comb. So that's very nice. Alternately, the honey-filled combs can be cut out of the frame, crushed up, and then strained through a cheesecloth. That seems like less good to me, I think, but it might be easier. I don't know. And then after extraction or straining, whatever you're doing, the liquid honey is like settles for a few days in like a closed container, and then it's ready to bottle and be delicious for you, Luke.
I love honey.
Let's see here. There are different types of colony classifications. There's the hobby beekeepers, so that's kind of obvious, right? Then there's sideline beekeepers. They try to make a profit. They're usually running about 300 colonies, which seems massive to me. But then you get into commercial beekeeper operations, and that's at like 50,000 colonies that they're running. And then what's interesting, I thought, is there's also specialists like queen breeders, which obviously specialize in breeding queens to then sell off to people that are starting their own colonies. So all very fascinating to me, Luke. I have some technology I wanted to talk about. Do you have anything else you wanted to cover?
So I don't. We can wrap up with technology, but I do want to recommend folks. So there is a website called savethebees.com. And there's a bunch of history there about the bees. There's like ways you can help out. It talks about like all the things they do. It talks about the decline in the bee population. But if you're interested in saving the bees, I'd recommend you check them out and maybe make a purchase of a t-shirt or something like that. Or you can just buy one of our t-shirts.
I think
that'll save
100% of the proceeds from our t-shirts will not be donated to the bees. So that is something to keep in mind. Technology, Luke, you mentioned it earlier, flow hives. This is my favorite of all the tech that I saw. Go over to honeyflow.com. They did not sponsor us, but thank you anyways, honeyflow.com.
They expensive.
They expensive. $1,000 basically for, I saw some that are like
starter kit,
like $795. The starter kit. Yeah. It's like $1,000, but if you go and look at it, it's like this fancy looking cute beehive house. The bees love it. And all you got to do is turn a little faucet and your honey starts coming out of it. So that probably seems worth it compared to the little process that I just talked about with your hot knife and your centrifugal force. And
so did you look in to see how they actually do it?
I looked at their website, but I don't think we really have a ton of time. Do you want to summarize it quickly?
So imagine you have those hexagonal, they build the honeycombs with their plastic, and there's a seam down the center. And what happens when you turn that key is internally they offset. And as soon as they offset, then the honey flows. So it doesn't disturb the bees.
It's doing that like hot knife process for you, basically.
Yeah, exactly. But it's actually not. The caps stay on. This happens in the center of the comb. So that the honey, the wax caps stay on, the larvae stay in there. Like it drains from the center down. Not.
And how do they get it put back in?
Then you turn
the wax is still there.
You turn they realize there's nothing left in the wax, so the bees will chew the wax off and fill it back up.
So we just make them work harder. Good job, Flow Hives. I love it. Okay, another thing that is out there is Hive Tracks, and this is an app that lets you track the progress of your hives and like kind of keep tabs on your bees. So it makes sure all of your important information is easily accessible. It creates interactive maps and calendars to keep track of your bees, when they're going, when you should be opening up your hive and things like that. You don't want to be opening it up and be like, crap, still no honey for me. Arnia, again, it's a high-tech combo, software and monitors. So it doesn't just keep track of your hive's temperature and humidity and the activity. It also lets you check on this information anywhere that you're at, like all over the world. So that's cool. And it also will send you an emergency alert if something happens to your hive, like if a storm knocks it over or if Yogi comes and smashes it up, it'll tell you what's going on there. For those of you who don't want to spend money on these things, there's something called open source beehives, which is just like that. But as you'd guess, it's open source. So it's always changing. It should be free-ish unless you want to donate, whatever. So it's an option. And then there were just a couple cool things. I saw Sky Hive, which is like a 20-foot pole that can lower and raise the beehive up to the top. So for people who might be in areas that they don't want a beehive, like with the bees swarming, they can do it that way. And then in Buffalo, they've designed something called the Bee Tower, which is like a 22-foot tall pillar made of hexagonal pieces of steel. And up at the top is a giant beehive, but down at the bottom, you can like look up and kind of do like an observation deck.
That's
like
cool.
Look through in the hive. So I thought that was pretty neat as well. And that's about it. Oh, one more, sorry. Thermo solar hive. So this is a modern beekeeping technology. It protects against pests that are wiping out a lot of the bees. Like there's a certain kind of mite, varroa varroa mites.
You nailed it. Yeah.
And so it keeps it at a temperature that kills those things off, but the bees still enjoy. And they're seeing that this is, or they power it through a rooftop solar panel to keep the heat up in the hive. But they're saying that honey collection goes up about 75% when you use this, because it's not killing off your bees, it's keeping the temperatures right, things like that. It only runs, like $538. So a minor investment.
I guess honey. If you're a beekeeper and you sell your honey, right?
Yeah, exactly. Anything else you want to add in there, Luke?
So here we go. 10 quick uses.
Ooh,
wash your hair. It's great for your hair.
Oh, no way.
Chapped lips. You can literally take beeswax, like a cube of beeswax you buy from a beekeeper, and rub it on your lips. You can treat minor cuts and scrapes because it has antimicrobial properties. You can actually put it on your feet if you have athlete's foot because it has antifungal properties. It can treat insomnia, acne, relieve anxiety, mosquito bites, and obviously soothe a cough with some tea and honey.
I had some honey cough drop things when I
really
was COVID-y. Miracle worker. Miracle. Love it. Good job, whoever made those. I forget. Well done, Luke. Also, athlete's foot. I don't want to rub honey on my feet. That's just really gross. But it sounds like a miracle drug.
It is.
Hopefully you all learned anything you might ever want to know about bees, beekeeping, harvesting your honey, all of that good stuff. If we missed anything or we got it wrong, like we probably did, go ahead and email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. And until next time,
see ya.